Welcome, friends. Welcome back to Sunday Morning in the Old Cookbook Show. We're going to do another recipe today out of the 1918 version of the Five Roses Cookbook. Now, a little bit of weirdness today. So in this cookbook, there are a number of dessert recipes, cake recipes, pie recipes, tart recipes that include meat. And so there's more than one cake in this book that includes pork. So I thought I would do one of these pork cakes. So I've put ground pork in this pot. I'm going to put this pot on a high heat with 2 cups of water. I'm going to cover it, I'm going to bring it up to a boil, and I'm going to cook that pork through. Now, pork in a cake might seem a little weird in 2019, but there is a long history within Northern European cooking, specifically English cooking, where savory dishes that were based on meat over time morphed into dishes that no longer have meat that are very sweet. And the most obvious one of these is mincemeat. You see a mincemeat pie or a mincemeat tart. Those started out mostly as meat and savory dishes. And in most contemporary recipes in 2019, there is absolutely no meat or fat or suet or any of those things left in the recipe. It's just disappeared and become something that's sweet. So this strikes me as a cake that's on a similar trajectory. So I've got 3 eggs here. I'm just going to whisk them together, and then I'm going to whisk in some white sugar. Now, as is typical with this book, there are absolutely no instructions. And I mean no instructions other than you boil the pork in the water. There's nothing about how long you cook it, what temperature you cook it, which is normal, per normal, but some of the ingredients don't even have amounts, just that you put them in. And I'm a little bit worried about that because you can overdo some of these spices, like the cloves. So I'm just going to have to guess on that. That is molasses. So I've got molasses in there. Next in, I'm going to put the spices. So cinnamon, it just says to put in cinnamon. I've got a couple teaspoons of cinnamon, and we'll see what happens, because it says it makes 3 loaves. So I'm imagining there's quite a bit. And I mean, I know there's going to be quite a bit because you got a pound of pork, pound of raisins, pound of dates. There's quite a bit going on here. Next is nutmeg. So I'm just going to grate in most of 1 nutmeg. Okay, that's pretty much the whole nutmeg. I'm going to whisk that in. Now, I've got ground clove here. It doesn't say how much, and I know that cloves can be overpowering. So, I don't know. I'm going to try a pinch. I'm going to start out with a pinch, taste it after it's done, and see if that was too much. Well, maybe a pinch and a half. And we'll see where that gets us. So, just continue whisking that in. Okay, next in are raisins. And, of course, chopped dates. Now I think I'm going to put in the pork. I'm not really sure, but I don't know whether to drain the pork. It doesn't say whether to drain the pork. It doesn't say whether to use the water. So I'm just going to put it in and see what happens. So, you ready? In goes the pork and the water. And I have to imagine that if you don't eat pork, you could probably use beef. Find out. We'll find out. So we're going to mix this in. Okay, the last 2 ingredients are flour and baking soda, and it doesn't tell me how much flour. It says just enough. So I'm going to use a 1/3 cup scoop, and I'm just going to start out with maybe a cup worth of flour or so, and see where that gets me, and then add it in about 1/3 of a cup at a time. And when I get close, that's when I'm going to add the baking soda, because I don't want the baking soda to start too soon. And we're going to see what happens. 1 cup's not going to make it. I'm going to be at least 3 cups of flour before I get this done. Okay, so I think I've got a good consistency. Now, if you are tuning in for the very first time to watch our Sunday morning program, let me tell you something. I don't do any research about these recipes. I come in cold. I pretend that I've never cooked before, and I open up the book and I start making a recipe. And I do use, the knowledge that I already have in my head, but I don't do any research into the background of the recipe or the nuances of the recipe. If I haven't seen the recipe before, I go in cold. And let me tell you, this one I am frozen cold. I have no clue. And I already think that I've made some mistakes, but you know, I'm going to keep forging ahead and we'll see what happens. So I put maybe half the batter in this loaf pan. These loaf pans are bigger than average, so I'm hoping that I can get all of the batter split between the two. We'll see, because I don't want to put it into a third. Yeah, I think we're going to be fine. Now, I'm going to put this in the oven. I'm going to watch over it very carefully because I don't know what temperature and I don't know what time. But what I do know is that modern ovens are much more efficient than the ovens were 100 years ago. So, smooth the top a little bit. Tap them down and get them in the oven.
Did you?
I did.
You did.
So, so this
Smells good.
Yeah, I'm surprised. It does actually smell good, but I'm you know a little bit worried because I think I maybe did some things wrong, but we'll figure it out.
I was kind of surprised. Some people noticed there were recipes for this. There were
Multiple recipes.
Yeah.
Multiple recipes for pork cake, and so people requested it, and you know, so we did it. Let's see.
I think I want to have
A tiny little piece.
Everything looks good about it. It's got the right color. It's got the right smell. It's got dates in it, of course. There's dates.
Dates and raisins and spices and.
All right, well.
If I didn't know there was pork in it.
It's a moist
Yeah.
spice cake.
Yeah.
There is I think I'm going to put more spices in it.
A little bit, well, and that's the thing with this recipe, there's no indication. It just says cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. There's no indication of how much. And if you didn't tell me there was pork in that,
No. You would have...
I would never notice.
There's a weird texture to it. Like if you told me, gave it to me and said, this is a piece of cake, there is a weird texture. It'd be like it's almost like having jujubes or something in it, right?
Yeah,
Versus,
but it
it's
is
got like a chewy texture that you don't expect from cake, but it's not unpleasant.
It's a spice loaf, though. Really, it's a spice fruit cake. So it has the texture of having fruit in it. That's insane. Okay, so I was worried that the ground pork wasn't right because this recipe just says 1 pound of pork chopped fine. And I thought, oh, after I got going, I thought that's not quite right because this one page over, the pork fruit cake.
Okay, so first of all, let's remind you, there is more than one.
There's more than one.
recipe.
1 page over on the pork fruit cake, it's 1 pound of solid fat pork, chopped very fine. And then I started thinking, maybe they didn't want the meat, maybe they just wanted the fat.
Like suet in a... yeah.
Suet, except using pork instead of an unrendered pork fat, which still has the membranes in it. So I'm going to make this pork fruit cake next week. Because
I'm fascinated.
the pork
It's
fruit,
eggless, too.
the pork fruit cake has all of the things that you would have in a fruit cake. The brandy, the cloves, the ginger, like it'll be a more rounded cake. But it only
It's
uses...
like this one's a little bit more...
Yeah, this one's great. You could take it a little bit farther and make it fantastic. And I think that this one will be fantastic. But it just uses the pork fat.
So here's my question to you. If you made this, would you share it with your friends and then tell them? Or would you tell them up front? I'm just curious. I'll let you feel free to share with us what you think.
Depending on...
Oh, clearly, yeah. If your friends are, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have other fruities, they're vegetarians. Okay, with that exception.
This is not vegan. This is not
halal,
kosher.
This is not
halal.
kosher. Yeah,
No.
all those things. But with that exception, let's say your family who you know what they eat.
Yeah.
Would you tell them?
No, I wouldn't tell them. I'd put it down and just let them go. Because I'm confident that is a fantastic cake, and they would look at me and go, "You're going to tell me the recipe?" And then I would say,
I wonder what it's like with butter on it. We don't have any here, do we?
"No,
Oh,
no." Okay.
okay.
So,
Try it.
I would definitely say that this 1918 pork cake is a winner, and I would make this again.
And I'm going to have a piece with my tea later.
Yep, and next week, come on back, and we're going to do the sort of expanded pork fruit cake from 1 page earlier, which has more stuff in it, and I think it's going to be amazing.
And it won't be a surprise because now we know it's good.
Yes. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.